You're listening to Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. On each episode, we sit down with key industry experts to discover more about what's happening in the world of learning and development, from current trends and insights to the most valuable lessons learned along the way. Join us for a fresh perspective on all things training and the best direction forward. Here's your host, Leanne Langford.
Hi, welcome to Learning Leader Spotlight, the podcast where we interview the learning leaders of today to help the learning leaders of tomorrow. I'm Leanne Langford, your host. I'm the president of Training Pros. Training Pros is a learning and development contract staffing company where we like to say, when you have more projects than people, let us find you the best consultant to start your project with confidence. Today, I am really excited about my guest. He represents a brand that is a family favorite. So please join me in welcoming Adam Bocken, Vice President of Training and Development for Margaritaville brand. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks, Leanne. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. I have lots of good stories about the Margaritaville brand restaurants, but I know there's more to it than that. So why don't you just share with our audience a quick overview of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, great. Thanks. Yeah, we are a global lifestyle and hospitality brand. I think most folks hopefully have heard of Margaritaville. At least that's our goal, is that everybody's heard of us. It represents everything from hotels and resorts to food that you can find in your grocery store, cruise ships, restaurants, home furniture, home appliances. A little bit of everything kind of hits the Margaritaville world. And my role at the brand is I lead training and development and HR and do a couple of little things here on the brand side. So we get the opportunity to kind of touch all of it, which is really great.
That is fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like you've got a very broad area of responsibility for the brand.
It is, yeah. We are a franchise and a licensed company for the most part. So our job is to go out and ensure that people know what Margaritaville is and how to deliver an experience. When we look at hotel and resorts, people are getting hired who are really experienced hotel operators, general managers, and sales and engineering, all the different roles. And so they know how to run a hotel. Our job is to go in and teach them how to do it in a Margaritaville way, to deliver a Margaritaville experience, and for the team member side and for the guest side. So our CEO often says that when asked, what do we do? He says we're a training company, which is great job security for me. So I hope he keeps saying that. But at the end, that's what we do. We teach folks what Margaritaville is and how to deliver that experience for our guests, and when they come in and get what they're expecting from either a stay or coming in just for a meal or whatever it is that they'll with the Margaritaville universe.
So yes, that's amazing. And to work for a company that says we're a training company, it's amazing.
Yeah, it makes me feel good when he says it.
So what is it about learning and development that first attracted you to this field?
So like so many folks, every job that I ever worked, I was a trainer. It was when I started at Albertsons bag and grocery, I became a trainer, right? And working at Disney as a lifeguard, became a trainer. So every job, you just kind of gravitate towards it. I think whether it's the, raising your hand and saying, I'd like to be a trainer, or the manager walks by and taps you on the shoulder and goes, hey, you're going to this trainer class and you're going to train new people today. That's kind of how I got into it. And then it became something that I got really excited about. And I've always liked the blend of operations that comes with training, because I would never do well just building a widget. So I need a variety. I need a lot of different stuff going on, and training and development definitely hits that sweet spot of constant things going on, balls juggling and conflicting priorities and just stuff happening. It's always just kind of been where I've gravitated towards. Spent some time in operations, running restaurants, and then at Margaritaville, almost 18 years now with the Margaritaville brand. I started with us when we were a restaurant company. We actually operated all of our restaurants and was brought on to help with manager training and development and new restaurant openings and And then as we morphed into more of a franchise and licensing company, really working with the different properties on what the initial training looks like for all of our teams and hiring and the opening process, and then ongoing from everything supporting from materials to mostly instructor-led stuff at the property level for delivering that Margaritaville experience from a guest perspective, from a team member perspective, and just making sure that when guests come into a Margaritaville, they know that they've arrived, that they're not mistaking it for another hotel brand.
You tell a common story where you just end up always being the person who's doing the training in your role, and you finally realize, wait, this is actually a role, and I can embrace it.
There's a career here.
And it's one of those careers we don't leave once we get to start in it.
I know. When I was in school, I was studying to be a doctor, and I realized they don't make money. Like there's so much schooling, and then let's go into learning and development. That's where it's at.
Oh, okay. That's great. Yeah, I think learning and development appeals to me for some of the reasons that you were talking about as well, because I am one of those people who my eyes glaze over if I have to deal with detail all day long or repetitive things. And learning and development, as I always say, it feeds my ADD. It's always something new. I'm moving from this to this to this, and I can just keep going all the time.
Totally. I'm the same way.
So you've been in L&D a while. What are the most impactful changes you've seen in the field?
When I first got into really formal learning and development is with Darden Restaurants. I spent about 10 years with them. First 5 in hourly roles while I was in college, and then the last 5 management training and development and new openings, and e-learning was really kind of the thing, right? How could we build all the e-learning courses, put everything online, and just have everybody stare at a computer and learn, right? And you built those big storylines, and it took forever to build out a training course. But from inception to delivery, we're talking months, right, to deliver a course. And over the last 5 to 7 years, I think that time's been so truncated, right? You don't need a whole team of instructional designers. You just have that one person has an idea and can load a script. And now with AI built on top of it, they can help write the script for you. It's just, there's so much now that you can do at such a faster pace and really deliver, whether your L&D environment is a little bit more order taking, you can deliver quicker. Or if you're lucky enough to be in an environment where you get to kind of think and plan out and be a little bit more strategic in what your learning is going to be for folks out there, you get a chance to build that out in just a really full way without having 6 or 7 people to have to design courses and be instructional designers. Like, you can be the instructional designer, you can be the facilitator, you can be the head of learning, you can be all these things now with all the technology that's out there. So I think from an impactful standpoint, just tech in general, right now it's AI and how it's used, where it's used, what data's coming into it, how it's coming, like that continues to be the big thing. I think it will be for a really long time.
I have been watching all these changes over the years, and I was living my past for a few minutes when you were talking about it, because when I first started doing e-learning, it was you write out a storyboard with specific actions on what to do, on rollover, on click, on, and a course could cost you $500,000 to make. And today people are just whipping them out in a day,
Hey, you want to test your hand in instructional design, sign up for a 30-day Articulate subscription, and it's free, and you can build courses and see how it goes. Can't export anything, but you can build them.
Yep. And watch these couple of LinkedIn learnings, and you're good.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing too, just all the amount of content and information that's out there, whether it's LinkedIn Learning, YouTube, you want to learn how to do something, it's there. And I think L&D really, if we leverage all of that's out there, we can create so much on-demand training for folks that they don't have to be in a classroom at a time and a place to get what they need to be better at their jobs, and to, whether it's just to become an expert in their role or their future aspirations to, run the world, whatever it is, there's enough content out there to be able to deliver to folks. It's just about curating, getting it all together. And, and that's where having a few people on a team tends to be helpful.
Yes, absolutely. And, I often think that the only thing that's holding us back from being able to learn anything we want to is there's just not enough time
Right.
for our brains to absorb it.
Totally.
Yeah. There's everything you want to learn is out there and available right now. That
Absolutely.
really is amazing. Well, where do you see us heading? With all these changes happening, we can't have stopped. What's going to be happening to us in the next 5 years in L&D?
We see a lot about folks saying, AI is going to take jobs. AI is going to take jobs. And you've heard, other people say it's not AI taking jobs. It's somebody who knows how to use AI that's going to take your job. And, there's all these funny little things. I love everybody who's out there saying, I'm an AI expert. How can you be an expert at something that changes every 6 seconds, right? You know more than other people about it, but I don't know if anybody's really an expert at this stage in it. But I think that we're going to see a lot more efficient training teams and learning teams. I think that there's going to be even more of a demand for the I need a class today, I need a class tomorrow. Once operators and business partners really realize how quickly things can be churned out at this point, if you have the right tech and the right people doing it. I think we have to be wary of how much AI information we're using and stuff. Because as I think you found, AI likes to make stuff up sometimes. You get these hallucinations, and they're pulling fake studies, and they're pulling from other AI stuff that's been created, that's been dropped into the model, and now you've got this, what's real, what's not real, what's factual information. The lawyers are seeing, and they're creating briefs citing cases that never existed. There's just, I think that we're going to have to be really diligent in how we vet out the information that we're getting out of AI models and AI helpers. But to the speed with which we can create content now, and really reach learners across the organization, that's exciting. And just being able to do it right and do it well. I don't know who's doing it really well yet, but when we figure that out, everybody's gonna start doing it that way.
Unfortunately, I think what's really well today is going to be outpaced by somebody else.
Yeah, totally.
We do a lot of work trying to figure out, how are departments using AI for L&D. And every month I feel like I'm getting new and better answers. And it's like, everybody's getting skilled up really fast. But I agree with you. We're going to be doing things more efficiently and faster. I also feel like while our roles will go away, I feel like they'll more or change a little bit so that we're
Totally.
taking on a different role.
Mm.
But yeah, and I think just like when Articulate, that you just used as an example, when Articulate came along, it was going to suddenly nobody needs instructional designers to build e-learning. Well, no, instead, we needed to build 10 times as much e-learning. The demand went way up with the speed of creation and the reduction of price.
Absolutely did.
Well, let's shift gears for just a second. Let's talk about mentors in your life. Who's been your most influential mentor?
For me, it was early in career. There were, I had two folks. There was an executive vice president for us at Darden, who was still in contact with, and he's always been, that guy that I call to bounce thoughts off of. Right? If I'm having an issue, or he's that guy that I can just call, because the advice is always sound. It's never sugar-coated. Sometimes it's a kick in the butt, and that's what you need. And so sometimes it's hey, you're right on, run that path. I remember fondly one time, one of the first learnings from him was I was an opening specialist, like early in career, entry level job, opening restaurants for Smoky Bones, and we were sitting at a table, and he had this idea. He said, I want to talk about this when we get back to the office. And I was in the middle, like 2 or 3 things, and I said, absolutely, it's great. Can you send me an email to remind me to set up the meeting? Well, he sent me an email and it said, "Dear Adam, here's an email to remind you not to manage up. Set up this meeting."
That's great.
And since then, it's always kind of stuck with me as when I need reality, he's the guy that I call and talk to. And from the learning and development and HR side, same company, but she was my first director. And since then, she's gone on to lead, been a CHRO at a few different companies and then has her own consulting gig now. But she's been, my rock for all things HR, from employee relations to benefits to organizational development and leadership and training and just how to be that person in the organization that folks trust, that they know that they can go to and that they can rely on. Something that stuck with me that she always said is the leaders have to do what they're saying they're going to do. Right? The quickest way to lose credibility is to not do what you say you're going to do. Whether it's give somebody a scheduled day off or follow through on a deadline or a promise on a project that you can do. So the scale doesn't matter. Just always do what you say you're going to do, and credibility will continue to follow you through that career. So.
Those are two great stories. I hope that they know that they were influential in your life.
I think I've told them, but probably after this I'll give them a call.
That's great. That's great. I'm a big proponent of mentoring. I had my mentors when I was young, and I feel like once you've gotten to a certain stage of your career, it's time for you to be the mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure we always know that we're a mentor. It's not always through a formal program, but I think it's an important role for us to take on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yep. People need help getting started in this field for sure. Shift gears again. There's a lot of talk always about skills, and with all the changes we've been through in the workforce lately, what do you think is the most important skill for people to have right now?
I don't know if it's right now, but I just think in general, adaptability, to be able to really understand what you're being asked to do and to learn, right? Like we talked about earlier, the amount of content that's out there to learn a new skill or to become better at what you currently do or what you're being asked to do. It's out there. But if I'm being asked to build, an Excel workbook that's got complicated formulas in it, I got to know that there's resources out there for me. I can watch a video on how to do it. I can drop it into Claude and have Claude create the formulas for me, right? You got this stuff, but it's making sure that people have the accessibility to the information and know where to go. And like I said, adaptability and flexibility, just being able to jump from one thing to the next and not letting it get you locked up. Too often, we have this plan and we want to stick to the plan, and everything's going sideways around, and all they do is spend the time talking about how it went wrong instead of this is how we can fix it. This is how we can adapt. This is how we can, push forward. And I think the companies that do it the best and the teams that do the best are the ones that are really agile. At all these learning conferences and everything, there's always a panel about learning agility, right? There's always a panel about upskilling. There's always a panel about AI. But the reality is those are the topics and those things that we need to continue to talk about and push with our teams.
I couldn't agree more. And I have to say, adaptability is extremely necessary right now, because the way we did something last week could change like this.
Oh, no.
And you have to be adaptable and ready to just, okay, you know what? There's a better way to do it, and here's how it's going to be.
Totally.
Where do you get your industry news and information?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a sponge. I try to get from a bunch of different spots. ATD is great. Chart, which is for hotel and restaurants. I love Harvard Business Review. Love reading our articles in there. There's we use a platform called Predictive Index for screenings and things, but it's also for coaching and managing. They put out a ton of content and articles. There's actually a webinar coming up this week that I'm going to sit in on. I'm excited about. There's a lot of content coming out of there. SHRM, it's just a little bit lobbying government policy stuff. But there's some great resources especially the user generated content on there. And some of those forums, there's great ideas in there. When you kind of look org development and leadership development. And then I love listening to Simon Sinek. Like he's incredible. John Maxwell, just trying to get content from other folks and just see their ideas, because that helps spark ideas for me. And when driving or standing at a whiteboard, just trying to free think, all that stuff kind of comes out whether you realize it, you absorbed it or not.
You do. You absorb a lot. And I love listening to podcasts to get information. And it's a way for me to continue learning while I'm taking a walk, walking the dog, folding laundry, whatever.
So,
but yeah, there's so many different sources of information out there to be absorbing. But one of the things I heard you say that I absolutely love is that you're going to be, you watch a webinar. It's one of the things I encourage my team all the time is take 1 hour a week to watch a webinar on something you don't know about yet.
mm-hmm.
And with the rate of change going on in L&D, one webinar a week may not be enough.
No, we'll never worry about.
Yeah.
And the key to all that is that we talk about plans, but plan some time, right? Set aside some time in your calendar on, either whether if you've got the predictability in your schedule to do the same day every week, or just on your Monday or your Sunday, if you're kind of at your planner that way. Like I love to look at my calendar on a Sunday. It gets me, in the little places then, so I know what's coming up on the week. I know what's happening Monday, and I'm not walking into, a storm. And I try to put, a couple of, 1 to 2 hour blocks in my calendar for thinking, for webinars, for learning. And when I find something, shut down the email, phone on vibrate, just make sure that, get rid of the distractions and focus on what you're trying to learn. Because, if you got email running up while you're kind of half listening to something, and like some of the listeners probably doing on the podcast right now, you're not absorbing all the information. So be present, be focused on it. But yeah, absolutely, it's huge to just learn and be obsessed with learning. Especially as a learning professional, you've got to dive in.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Last question. And this one is really selfish for me because this is where I get my reading list. What is a book you would recommend for anyone wanting to be a learning leader?
Yeah, it's funny when we had our little prep call. The one that popped in mind was the Major Six-Pack, right? So every instructional designer has got to read the Major Six-Pack. Well, like we talked about before, you don't need that. Is it right above your shelf? Yeah.
I have it right up there. Yeah.
In my bookcase behind. But you look at it and you're like, some of the stuff doesn't apply anymore. The concepts apply, but going through the steps, you're doing it very different. We're doing it very differently now. So from a learning standpoint, if you're going to be a head of learning or instructional design, or you're going to be creating any kind of courses or training plans for folks, Major Six-Pack for sure. But I like to read leadership and management or development kind of stuff. That's where I get my my energy from in books. So I constantly talk about Collins and Good to Great. Get the right people on the bus. That's one thing that stands out for me. And talk about agility, and getting punched in the mouth. When you read Good to Great, you learn about all these companies that were able to move and change and adapt, and the ones that didn't, you see what happened to them, right? Good to Great was, it said, is an awesome one. There's one by Will, and I never say his name right. I think it's Gadara, called Unreasonable Hospitality. And when you think about what our role in learning and development is we are a service organization, right? Within your org, you sit and you're of service to. You have to have hospitality. You have to be able to deliver the unexpected, hear what people are actually asking for instead of what the words are, because it's probably not the same thing. And often in learning and development, nobody comes into our offices and puts money on our desk and says, thank you, right? We don't generate a ton of revenue. We like to spend. But that spend should generate revenue in the long term. And, we have to be of service to business partners, to the rest of the organization, and help drive business outcomes. And Unreasonable Hospitality is about taking care of people. It's a really good book.
So I've read a lot of the ones you named. Unreasonable Hospitality is one that's been named before on this show, and I haven't gotten to it yet. It's on my list, but it reminds me, I have this model that I share with my team all the time called front stage and backstage, which is, when you go to a play, you only see what's on the front stage. But backstage is where all the crazy, stuff flying,
Well, yeah.
all of that's happening. And it's important to keep in mind what belongs on the front stage and what we need to keep backstage. Like, they don't need to know how the sausage is made.
No.
They just need to see the part that we're trying to show, that this is our process and how we do things.
Once it's the CFO and they're in charge of the budget, they need to know how the sausage is made. They got to know how much it takes.
Well, yes. And then the Mager 6-pack, it's Robert Mager. For anybody who was trying to look it up. My favorite one was the analyzing performance problems. I came up in this L&D world when it was more performance consulting than it was so much content.
Right.
And so a lot of our time was spent going through and showing that it's not really a training issue. And we use that book to do it.
It absolutely. I talk often in some training classes where I talk about Kepner-Trejo and the studies that they did and talking about analyzing performance problems and how so often when somebody's not doing well, let's retrain them, put them back through training, let's get training on. And the reality is, over 80% of the time, the issue really is about the environment. It has nothing to do with training. It's about leadership or skills or material that they have, all those other things.
Or rewards and punishment.
Exactly. And we say, go through training and, oh, crap. It happens in cybersecurity all the time, right? You put out these little things for cybersecurity training and you see who's going to click. And the minute they click on it, they get, you got to go to more training. And here's your punishment now because you clicked on things. Now you're going through and they're calling it training. And it's that gives us such a bad name.
It is. It's more like a punishment for sure. But
it really is.
I mean, there's so I like to take sales reps as an example because they're supposed to, do all of this detailed documentation of the steps they're going through. But if they do those, they don't have as much time to be in front of the prospect.
Right.
They're literally punished by lower income by doing the things you're trying to get them to do. And all the training in the world is not going to get them to do.
No, not at all, because there's no reward for that. The reward is talking to a customer or a client or prospect, right? And it's the same thing. Training is often used as a carrot, or it's used as a punishment, or
or a checkbox
as an event. It's something you have to do.
Yeah.
Really, training is a process. It's not an event. And it's I talk to our frontline trainers all the time about, you've worked here for 2, 3, 4 years, and you're training someone. Your job is not to teach them everything you've learned in 4 years. You didn't know what you knew in 4 years when you started learning, and teach them the stuff they need to know to do the job. And then the process of training continues, and it happens all the time, right? The event is I got hired, right? Today's day one, that's event. But the training is very much a process, and it can't be looked at as a singular event.
So we're of a like mind here, Adam.
I like it.
Well, Adam, you have been a wonderful guest, and thank you for giving me some new reading material. As our thank you to you, our charity here at Training Pros is that we plant trees on behalf of our client projects. And we've planted over 5,000 trees in the world so far. And we would love to plant 5 trees in your name as our thank you.
Aw, thank you very much. I love trees.
Well, good. We need trees, I think.
They're good for oxygen, I hear.
And all kinds of things. I get this whole report on all the benefits of planting trees because we plant so many.
Oh, well, thank you for that. That's great. I love it.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you again for being on our show.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
It sure was. So that's it for this week's episode of Learning Leaders Spotlight. We hope you join us again next week when we will be interviewing another learning leader from another industry.
Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. You'll find links in the show notes to any resources mentioned on today's show. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a 5-star review.